So I'm going to hit that. So once again, watch your mouth. I'll try to as well. Why do I tell people that? Like anyone's going to, well, you will. But anyway, what I'd like to do today is talk about how to set up your gradebook very simply, and I'm specifically referring to if you're moving a class online. And am I correct that Monday now we're supposed to be ready? Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we're told.
Okay, yeah, we got that too. So hopefully, and by the way, I'm kind of the opinion that if your course isn't perfect on Monday, who cares? You know, really, I'm sure the students just want to know the first thing they need to worry about, and then you can still work on it later. That's completely understandable. So if your gradebook isn't perfect right away, it's really okay. But the one thing I want to emphasize today is if you wish to set up your gradebook so students will know their course totals, which is, I guess, a calculation, I guess we could say. There's a few things you're going to have to do. If you just want to have your students see their grades, well, that's automatic, and that happens anyway in Vancko Hall. But the calculation is what we care about, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So these 4 things, I used to have 8, and I narrowed it down because these are really the important things. If you look at your syllabus, and I'm going to put my syllabus next to it, and let me scroll down to where I have right here, I have all of my, let me make that bigger for folks to see it. This, of course, all of our syllabi have something like this, where you tell the students how much everything is worth. This is what your gradebook has to look like. Now, once again, I don't know if everyone can keep this the same as what it was before all this craziness happened. Maybe you have to make changes, but I would strongly recommend that you figure out those changes before you put the calculations in your gradebook, or else you're going to have to go back and it gets confusing. So if you do have to make any changes that you're aware of into your course, or how things are graded, or what the weighting is, it's probably better to have that figured out before you go and make categories and put weights in. It'll save you a lot of time. Once again, though, I think we're all sort of flying by the seat of our pants here, just to make sure that we give the students, the minimum that they need. But anyway, that's it. So here's what we're going to do. We're keeping our grade formula simple because we understand it and the students understand it. I'm going to talk about keeping the course totals to 100, because that way, mathematically, 100 points is also the same as 100%, and you won't get confused. I once worked with a faculty member who was a great instructor, and her course total was like 3,270. And she said sometimes the students don't know how they're doing, and I'm like, well, I can kind of understand, because if they how do you oh, I got a 2620. What does that mean? So if we can make the course total be 100, and it doesn't matter what your individual grades are for each assignment, because Moodle just looks at your categories to come up with 100. I'll talk about that in a little bit. It is a requirement to use categories if you want the grades to calculate properly, and I'll go into that in depth. And also, when it comes to weights, it's important to try to keep them understandable so you understand them and the students do. When you look at the gradebook and you look at how your students are doing, it should be pretty obvious that the grades are correct. If they're not, then we've done something wrong. Now, using my example again, I worked with a faculty member who had, I think they had 16 quizzes. If you got a certain number on 5 of them, you didn't have to take the next 2, and then they dropped 1 of a certain group, and it was unbelievable. We actually made it work. I don't know how we made it work. It was luck, I think. I would strongly recommend right now just trying to be very simple in this regard. If you need to have it like that, let's work together. Drop me a line, drop me a ticket, and we'll work on it. But simple is better. Okay, oh, by the way, I'm also going to post this up when we're done. This should be about a half hour. I'm going to post this up on the main page, which is off of the login page up top. I think it's called Grade Teaching Through Disruption or something. Just click on that and this should be there. Okay. Before we begin, and here's the elephant in the room that I was speaking about, and it has to do with the fact that if you're moving your class online right now, you almost certainly have grades in your gradebook already. Your gradebook may be written with a pen in a book like the old days. Maybe you have an Excel file. If these grades are not in your Vancko Hall class, of course, the calculation for how the students are doing will not be correct because it doesn't take that into consideration. Anything from now on will go into the Vancko Hall gradebook automatically. You don't have to worry about that. But if you don't have all that other stuff in from beforehand, the calculation will not be correct. So here are your three choices, and I've given this some thought, and I think these are our three options. The first is tedious, but if you want, let's say I'm just making this up. Let's say you had 5 essays before all this stuff happened, and we had before our forced spring break. You'd have to make 5 sort of shell assignments in your course and then manually go in and put all of the grades in from every student from every assignment. You could do that, and then the students would see it, and then the calculation would be correct. If you have a simple set of grades, this may work. It's going to take you some time. I guess it also could cause some, if you make a slight error because you have to manually type in every grade, it could be a problem. You can import an Excel sheet. It's a little problematic. If you want to try that, I can help you. We've had sort of not so great luck when we've tried that, but we can try again if that saves you some time. So that's number one. It's a lot of work, but it certainly it can work. Now, the other option is simply to tell your students that the number they see as the final grade is just not correct. Many faculty don't use the gradebook anyway, even in a normal year, a normal term, and I think they just have to tell the students, your grades are all there, but the calculation isn't correct. If this is just too much, if this is going to cause more heartache than help, you certainly could do that. I'm not sure I even have the authority to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you just want to say your grades from now on are in there, but the total doesn't work out, I think that's very understandable. And here's my last crazy possibility of the 3 options. The last option requires that you do some calculation on your part, and you would create a new category in the gradebook and call it something like, I don't know, previous grades or in-class work or everything before or something like that. And then you would put the grade in and the percentage of the total, the weight of the total that the students have earned already, and you'd have to probably calculate this with a calculator or in your head, and then you'd put in that number in the category. So that one grade in its own category is what the students have worked for already. Now, let me give an example. If you got to the point in the semester that you have 40% of their grades already done, and I don't mean 40% of the work, I mean 40% of the calculated grades. So for example, in my syllabus here, let's just say, this doesn't happen, but let's just say all the work so far has been these 5 short essay papers. So that means 5 assignments have been handed in, but I have 14 forums and I have 2 tests. So this is not 50% of the actual number of assignments, but it is 50% of the total grade. So if I came up with this number, say a student got 300s and 2 90s or something, they'd have like a 96, and I would put the weight of the category as 50%. This would be very simple if it was only this simple, but I imagine many of you have already a bunch of grades that are calculated differently. So if you can do this and have one grade and call it, like I said, like previous grades, then our calculation can work. Moodle is not designed to handle this, what we're asking it to do. We have to finagle it to make it work. If you want to do that, once again, drop us a help desk ticket. It'll probably come to me because I do the gradebook stuff, and we can help you with it. Anything I say today, we can help you with it if you get confused or lost. So please ask. We want people to ask. Okay. Number 1 is keeping it simple. Let me move this out of the way. The gradebook, of course, has to reflect your course outline. So I'm going to go to the gradebook here. It's in the administration block. The default name is gradebook setup. If you were an old timer like me, you remember there used to be gradebook setup and gradebook. They removed that not too long ago. Well, I guess a little while ago now. So here is my, let me see if I can make this a little smaller so you can see. Okay, here we go. I hope you don't have a small monitor because this is going to get a little small. You can see that my essays here are right here, 50 total. So I put for the category 50%. All these essays will add up. No matter what grade I put here, I could put 20, 60, 80, whatever. It all adds up to 50% of the weight of the final grade. So 50% of my students' final grade comes from essays. I have 2 tests, a midterm and a final. You see I gave them each their own category. I could easily have just given it 30% for both, but I just did it separately. There's no reason not to. And I have participation. And I only put a few of these here just to show you, because if I had 14 of them, it would go off the page. I removed a bunch. Now, there's something interesting right here we're going to come back to. Notice here, I've said that the chapter 20 question is worth double what the other ones are, but the gradebook doesn't know that. I'm going to have to do something. The essays are all 100. I don't have to touch it. Everything is fine, but I want to show you how to do that. I also see a mistake here. Uh-oh. When I designed my gradebook, I did something wrong. Notice that I have one of the participation discussions in the wrong category. This is only the final. You don't have to click on editing. You just go to this weird box or whatever this is. And I want to have this actually at the bottom here. So I just click on this weird, looks like two hands like touching. I don't know what it is. Then you'll see this. I got to find where I want it. I want it under here. I click it. And now you'll see it's in the right place. So don't worry if something's out of whack. You can easily move it. And also, Moodle will recalculate, because I just moved it from this 15-point grade to this 20-point category. So that's why you saw recalculating. So just make sure it's going in the right place and it'll be fine. Okay, so I have decided, oh, by the way, I should have said this earlier, I'm sorry. There's no polite way to interrupt, to raise your hand in a Zoom. So please just speak up. It's not rude. Please don't worry. I'd rather you ask a question than me just keep blabbing on. So as you can see, my syllabus now agrees, or I should say my gradebook agrees with my syllabus. So I'm all set. Moodle doesn't care what's in the categories. We care about the percentage. I could have 2 essays here. I could have 50 essays in here. It's only going to come to 50%. And that is one of the nice things. If you set up categories, which is our third rule today, create and use categories, then you can add and remove things from each category, and it doesn't affect it'll affect the grade in terms of the students did better or worse on what you're adding, but it won't affect the calculation for the grade. Okay. So here's my other option, number 2, use a course total of 100. You could see that 50, 50, and 20, 15, and 15, and 50 equals 100. I did that on purpose. I want everything to equal 100. Once again, you don't have to, but when I look at the students' grades, I can really, in my head, I immediately know if it's calculating right or how they're doing, because I kept it simple. And the students will as well. Okay, nothing there. Okay, so how do we create a, yes, please.
The points, are those just points for each assignment? Is that
right here?
The 100 and the 100 yep. points like for essays? Or is that just how the point totals that you're using for the assignment?
Yes, and the default is 100 when you create an assignment. The default is always 100. You could make it anything you want. Like I could have all these 10 or 37 or whatever.
So that doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter, except
as long as you have the weight correct.
Right, that doesn't, except I put this in here to sort of show what's going on here. I have these wrong. So I'm going to show you how to change these, because I want this chapter 20 question to actually equal double what the other ones are. And this one I mistakenly didn't change it. I left it at 100. I don't want that. Gotcha. So I did that on purpose. But yes, that's a good question. And Moodle doesn't care unless you want it to, which I'll talk about.
Okay, thanks.
So let's say I'm going to create an assignment. Now notice I've already made my categories. With your blank book, how do you do it? Right down here, add category. I go into my blank class. One of the first things you want to do, once you get your syllabus figured out and the weights, your gradebook may look empty. Go to add category and it'll ask you to create a category. I'm not going to create another one, but I'll show you what it looks like. I give it a name here. Leave simple weighted medium grades for now. What's the maximum grade I want in that category? I had like 15 and I think 20 and 50 in the other ones. This is where you put it. And then you save the changes. And then you have a new category. So I manually made each of these. And it's much better if I make these categories before I make an assignment, because here's how you do that. I'm going to go up to editing. Oh, let me move this a little bit and get back to the main page. I'm going to just create an assignment just to show you. I'm going to turn editing on. And right in the first thing here, the first week, I'm going to just create, oh, did I turn it off? Turn editing on. I think I turned it off. I'm going to create an assignment. One of your options, I always click on expand all. I'm going to create an assignment. We did this the other day in the tutorial, blah, blah, blah. Here's where this is important. Right here under grade, you'll see if I've made the categories, and I just click on where it goes. If you make all your assignments first and then you create the category, you have to manually move them all in that weird way that I showed you. So this is really smart. I'd click on essays. Here's where I change the grade. This was the earlier question. I could put anything I want here. It defaults to 100. And then it would be where I want it to be. So I just put, let me just give it, I'll just call it ignore. Probably, it might not let me see. I spelled that wrong too. And because I told it where to go in the grade book, you'll see that that's where it went. It went right here. So that's the best way to do it, in my opinion. It saves you time and headache. Incidentally, here's the total, 50. This is not, next to the 50 is not where you edit anything in this category. It looks like it should. This is a weird vestige of old Moodle. You can actually create sort of like an Excel calculation. Only the math people here have ever successfully done that because they understand this stuff. I don't recommend you use it. Instead, the way we're doing it now, I think makes sense. So if you need to do any editing of the essays category, it's actually up top next to the word essay. And here's the edit setting. So this is confusing. I kind of wish they didn't have it like this, but it is. I should have said that earlier. So that's how we do it for an assignment. But if you're going to grade discussions, like here, there's a weird quirk in Moodle that I want to show you. So the week 8 assignment, I already have a discussion question here. Here's my chapter question. Let me show you what it looks like. I'm going to edit it. I figure, hey, I want to grade this. I want to give it, in forums, it's called rating, but it is grading. But look, there's no grading here. It doesn't let me do it. I first have to tell Moodle that I want to use ratings. And I'm just going to grade their best. I'll just take their best forum post. And I've changed it. Where is it? Come on. Oh, there it is. Now you'll notice when I save it, and I go back to it, I'm going to go back to the edit settings. Now you'll see grade. And now I can put in 5 or whatever I want to in there. It's a weird quirk of Moodle that if you don't know it, you can't figure this out. So please just be aware of that if you're going to use forum grading or rating, as they call it. Okay, let's keep moving. I have in my gradebook, I want to weight something differently. I like all the essays being the same, and like we said earlier, it could be any grade you want. It doesn't matter. Even if I put 200 for one, it's still going to count it as 1/15 of this, or 14th, or whatever. But I want this question, chapter 20 question, to be worth double what these other ones are for some reason. Or maybe you have a quiz that you want worth double. Here is how we do that. We go to the very top, the top category here, and we're going to edit how this looks like. Simple weighted mean of grades just means everything is as it looks. We just saw it. If we want to weight things, we do weighted mean of grades. And you have other options in here. They're a little, I think, direct, like they have very specific uses, but these are the two we use the most. Now you'll see something pop up. All of a sudden, Moodle wants to know all of these things. Oops, I'm sorry. I made a big mistake. Let me go back. Sorry, I screwed up. Ignore everything. Let me go back to. Wait, I screwed the wrong one. One more time. It's good I'm recording this because now I have evidence of my stupidity. Okay, one more time. Here's my mistake. I want this category to have different weights within it. If you click up here, you're going to tell different weights in the entire class, but we're already taking care of that with 15, 15, 50, and 20. So in the participation category, this is where I'm going to make my changes. I'm going to change this to weighted mean of grades, and now you will see Moodle is telling me what do you want them to be. The default is they're all the same. But remember, this chapter 20, I want to be double. So I'm going to put 2, and then save changes. And you'll see now that it doesn't even matter what these numbers are. This is just what the students see. I got 5 out of 5. I got 100 out of 100. This is what Moodle will now use. Please understand, and this is confusing, these numbers could be anything. This number could be 47. This could be 47. It means they're weighted the same. And of course, because we're all at home now, you hear telephones and barking dogs and things. So let's say I want, I could make this 5. And if I make this 5 and this 5, I got to make this 10. So think of these numbers as simply like ratios. I'm going to save it. And just like with 1 and 2, now chapter 20 question is worth double what the other ones are. So don't overcomplicate this. This isn't actually points. It's really a ratio with respect to the other ones. 1 and 2 make more sense, but I just wanted to show you could have anything that you want there. So here's the difference. Simple weighted means it's just going to count 50, 15, 15, and 20. If you want to use weighted mean of grades, then you have the option to make individual assignments or whatever, in this case discussions, worth more in the category. So I hope I explained that correctly, even with my fumble in the beginning. Okay, few more things. Let's go into this. We're going to edit this setting again, and I'm going to expand it all. There's a few things in here that you need to see. The first is we have defaulted to exclude empty grades. And what that means is, let's say you have 5 quizzes, the students have done 2. Logically, we should average in 3 zeros to that, but that doesn't make sense. So if the quiz hasn't opened yet, Moodle knows not to include it in your gradebook. And this is one reason why having the dates correct on assignments is good, because it will not. So if a student got 200s out of 5 quizzes and the other 3 haven't been taking it, students got 100, and they should know that. So this we defaulted to beyond, but that's what it means. You can also do this thing. Keep the highest. Now, this is confusing. We recommend you use keep the highest, because if you do drop the lowest, something mathematically weird happens. Let's say there's 5 quizzes, and I say we're going to drop the lowest 1. Student takes the first quiz. They have 100. They're excited, but they see a 0. Why? Because Moodle's dropping the lowest one that has been taken, which is the first quiz. So we do not recommend you use drop the lowest. There are some mathematical reasons to use it. I'm told, I haven't figured it out, but we use keep the highest. In this case, you'd keep the highest 4 of the 5, because when the student takes the first quiz, you're still keeping the first one. So it's confusing, but this is how we do it. So ignore drop the lowest. I've tried to get it removed, but it's part of the code. I can't. I wish I could, but someone tells me it's worth it, so I believe it. Okay. One more thing is this calculation. And I know I'm going fast, folks, so once again, please interrupt me. It's not rude at all. Let's go back to our grades. If you wanted to, and this is that confusing thing I said earlier, you could make an Excel-like calculation here. You would have to give each of these a separate name, or like A or B or something like that, or E2, E3, however you want to do it. And then you have to use brackets to make it happen. If you decide that you want to instead have an Excel-like calculation, you can do it, and we can help you with it. I recommend you don't, because if you make one mistake, like a bracket is wrong, the whole thing gets screwed. Just like Excel, the whole thing gets screwed up. But if you want to have something complicated, if you have something complicated and want it to work like that, we can help you with it. So please just ask, and then I'll cry. I'm not sure why this is out of place, but it is. Any questions on that very brief, simple tutorial about how we make our gradebook minimally function? And also, before you answer, if you set up your gradebook and you want someone to look at it, just drop us a help desk ticket. I probably will take it, and I can go into your course and just make sure everything's right, and then you're good to go. If you wish, always do that if you wish. Any questions, anybody? The gradebook can be scary, but not if you use categories and weights. It's easy. Cool.
Oh, wow. Thanks, John.
I appreciate it. Please contact me if I can help, or to verify that you did it right, and then you will be in good shape.
Hey, John, I have a quick question.
Shoot.
Say I'm just gonna set everything up. I'm gonna let them do either the quiz or the assignment, but I'm not gonna calculate the grades. I'm gonna tell them.
Yeah.
I can't do that now because we're in the middle of the semester. Should I still set up the categories?
You wouldn't have to, because the categories are what lets us do the final calculation.
So that's the only reason I would need to do that.
It's the only
Otherwise, I can just roll out the quiz.
Yeah.
They can see what they got, but I'm actually in the end gonna total everything and figure it out on my spreadsheet.
That is something I think many folks will decide to do.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds
And the thing
good.
is, because if you don't make any categories, it's just going to show them all in an order on this page. The students can still see their grades for sure.
They can see what they've been doing and what they're missing, right?
Yeah, it'll
Okay.
be blank for what they didn't turn in. That was opened and closed. Yeah.
But they just aren't gonna see the total, which is fine. Okay,
Yeah, I think on the bottom, like, here's what a student will see. Let me show you what a student will see. It'll look similar to this. Let me just use anybody. When a student, and they do it from the navigation block here up top. We use the gradebook because we set it up. But a student will see something like this. So they will see at the end this course total. So they will see something here. So this is why I recommend you being clear with the students from the beginning. Don't look at the course total. It's not right. Just because they will see it. Cool.
that makes sense. So then that way they can just see what they've done and what they haven't done, what they've gotten on those individual assignments, and I'll total it at the end.
You know what? I think, like I said, I think many folks will wind up doing that.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, to me, that's completely logical with what everything was going on. All right, folks. Like I said, please contact me if I can help. But that's how we set up the gradebook.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, John.